This is going to be a slightly different video than what I have been posting here at the Perch Farm, because I think it's kind of humorous. I'm pretty certain if God were a farmer, I am now experiencing the book of Job. Let me explain. All right, this all started maybe about 6 months ago when Charlotte and I went to a ballet or a dance recital or something up in Nashville. And we came home and we were driving her car and everything was fine. The next morning though, I got in the car to go run some errands, and when I started the car, every single warning light that I think the car has turned on or came on. It was so bizarre. Just the night before, we had driven it about 120 miles round trip into Nashville and back, no issues. That next morning, started it up. Every single warning light there was. So contacted the dealership and arranged to take the car in. I was afraid to drive it for obvious reasons, so I was able to use our trailer and mounted it on the trailer, and I drove it in. Ended up finding out that a rat had taken up residence in our car, and this was about $4,700 worth of damage. And that's when it began, the tests. The test of my resolve. So we knew we had a rat, but we didn't know how to deal with it. We started putting cameras under our cars after that, and we did catch it a couple times on camera, but then we didn't see it for the longest time, so we thought maybe it took care of it, maybe it left. Foolish us. One day, I come out the door, get ready to head into work, and there is a massive puddle of coolant under my car, and I'm driving a Tesla Model 3. So it was a little bit odd to see coolant because it's battery packed, but apparently that's not unusual. But I did find massive puddle. Called Tesla. There was no warning lights, there was no alerts, there was nothing, so everything was okay. They told me it was okay to drive in, so I made an appointment and I took it into them. $800, almost $900 later, found out that this rat decided to chew through a line that supplies the coolant into the battery pack. So that was test number 2. And then the next one I haven't shared with you guys yet too much, just because it's pretty traumatic. So one night we're laying in bed and Lily starts having a very difficult time breathing, I guess. I mean, she was panting heavily. It was very raspy, very deep in her chest. Not really sure what was going on. We just said to ourselves, we'll wait till the morning, and see if she's doing any better. And we did. We waited. It was just a couple hours. She was not doing any better. This was on a weekend, so we ended up calling the emergency hospital. They said, bring her in. We brought her in. They took her in immediately, just in a flash. I mean, they didn't even ask us to wait. They just grabbed her, took her from her arms after we described the symptoms. Come to find out, she's got a bad heart. Her heart has failed. One of the chambers in her heart is enlarged and the valve isn't able to work all that efficiently, and so blood isn't pumping through in the right direction. It's coming back in. It ended up resulting in filling up her lungs, and she was suffocating. That's why she couldn't breathe, and that's why it was such a stat thing. Thank goodness though, it's early on and treatable. There is a heart medicine and a medicine for removing the fluids out of her lungs. And we got her on that, brought her home. She was a lot better. She was stable. But then fast forward about a week, same thing. Middle of the night, wakes up, she's labored breathing again. This time we don't wait. We take her straight into the emergency room. Same exact problem. What we figured out though was I mistakenly did not read the instructions right for her medicine, and I was only giving her half the dose. So after the first visit, in between the second visit, I was only giving her half the dose, and so she had a relapse. But they got her stabilized. We now understand the dose. She's okay, but her heart has failed. So she's on borrowed time at this point. As long as the medicine keeps working, she'll be okay. So far, so good. The doctor said probably with the regimen and where her heart is, she probably got about 12, maybe 18 more months of life in her. So that was a very difficult pill. That's why I haven't really shared it with y'all yet. But it is, I think, germane to my story here. So that was trial number 3. One day when I was in the closet where our water heater is, I noticed a big puddle in the pan, called up the plumber, came out. Yeah, our water heater was 22 years old. They're not supposed to last that long. Instead of just getting a normal water heater, we went ahead and got a tankless water heater. Very glad on that decision, and if you're ever thinking about it, it's worth it. And the reason why it's worth it, unlimited hot water when you're taking a shower. No more running out of hot water. Yeah, sure, if you have a family of 4, or so, and there's kids, you might need to go with a couple of them, but for Charlotte and I, we just need the one, and that's what we've got. So that was, our next trial there. One other thing I forgot to mention about the water heater. When they were down, because they had to run a couple pipes, when they were in the crawl space running these pipes, we found out that one of our pipes in our house was leaking because of the rats that have been taking up residence in our cars, decided to chew through one of the Plex pipes and create a little frickin', it's like a beach resort down there. They got umbrellas, they got frickin' pina coladas. They're just there living their best life, these rats in our basement, or in our crawl space. So again, more evidence that we have a real big rat infestation, and there's more to come on that. And then the next trial has to do with Trinity. I did show that to y'all. One day she didn't come back for breakfast, which was very unusual for her. Later that night, despite not knowing where she was at, we had no indication. Her GPS stopped working. We thought the battery was run out, but I think there might be something wrong with the GPS, because this ends up happening again today. As I'm sitting here recording this, she's out missing again, and her GPS isn't working. And when I checked it last night, it had 40% battery and it left. So there's something wrong with her GPS tracker. All right, and then about a year ago, I was at work, and Charlotte got up on a step stool to put a planter or a vase or something on top of the cabinets in our kitchen, and she lost her balance and she fell and ended up hitting her left elbow on the countertop really hard, where she tumbled to the floor. She was in a lot of pain. She wasn't able to get up. I came home the next day, wasn't feeling any better. She's like, we thought maybe we should go get it x-rayed. So we went to the one of these walk-in clinics. They sent us to the hospital to get an x-ray done. The technician whoever reads the x-ray said, yeah, it just looks like you got a bone spur. Might just be some deep bruising. It'll be okay. At the same time, though, she was having some issues with tennis elbows from repetitive action on there also, which kind of compounded things. So over the last 12 months, her elbow kept bothering her, and I, in my mind, mentally just thought it had everything to do with the tennis elbow, and I never really went back to the fact that she landed on it and hurt it really bad, where when she landed, she said it was like limp. She couldn't move it. She couldn't do anything with it, and she had to put it in a little sling, in a makeshift sling, in order to get up off the floor with her bathrobe belt. But fast forward 12 months later, this was about a month ago, said, hey, man, why don't we go ahead and get this thing x-rayed again? So she goes to her doctor, part of her normal visit. He takes an x-ray. Her elbow was broken. So he immediately sends her to a specialist. So like within a few days, we get into this specialist doctor. He takes another x-ray, looks at it. He's like, yep, it broken. I'm going to operate on it. And so he said she went on like a Wednesday or Thursday. The surgery was scheduled for the next Tuesday, and that was this past 2 weeks ago. Or was it 2 weeks ago? No, it was this past week. When the hell was it? It was this past week. Yeah, it was this past week. So she got the surgery done. It seems to be a success, but again, another trial for the Job. And then there was the issue with the pool water. Living in Tennessee, you're better off to cover your pool in the winter. And so last year I did it by myself the first time, where I winterized the pool, did the cover and, winterized it, because the prior 2 years I just kept the pool running year round and just managed the chemicals. But this time I wanted to winterize it. So last year worked like a champ. This year did the same thing, followed the same steps. Come springtime, when I was on my vacation, I take the pool cover off, and man, it was like, it looked like toxic waste. The algae bloom in the water was just so heinous. So I did something wrong, I think. Something happened different that, made the winterization not so right. So anyway, here I am. I'm a week into it, and the water's still not clear to where it needs to be, but it's coming along. I'm not too worried about that, but yeah, another trial. And now this one is a little interesting. So the week prior to Charlotte's surgery, she had gone to the mall to pick up some items, and she was walking by this beauty supply store, Royal Bee, here in the local mall here. And she ended up getting accosted by these sales clerks and ended up having a real high pressure sales pitch put on her. Very stressful situation. She was walking by. She didn't even go into the store. She's just walking by. The person, she was marked. They marked her. And the person comes up and started complimenting her on her skin complexion and offered to try a few supplies. And before she knows it, there's like 3 people standing around her. They usher her into the store. It becomes this very high intensity sales pitch thing to buy all these products. Needless to say, I'm not going to give you all the details, but she walks out with a couple bags of stuff she didn't need. But it was all just the pressure of the sales. And despite being in there telling them repeatedly, I got to go, I just came here to pick up a few things, at the mall, I had no intention for this. And they just kept going on and on and on. And just to tell you how big this was, though, was as she's walking out the door and as she's leaving, she can hear the sales staff start celebrating and cheering. They were so happy over the sale they just made. It was obnoxious. And we are, we're trying to dispute the charges. We've contacted the store the next day saying, what the fuck? And they said, well, all sales are final, nothing we can do, can't help you. So we're going and we're trying, she was never told all sales are final. I don't know if there was a sign in the store or not. I don't know if it's relevant or not, but we're gone to the credit card companies and we're trying to file a dispute. And we're going to try to at least get the money back through that way because it was an obscene amount of money that these people stole from her. And if that doesn't work, we'll end up probably filing it in small claims court in Tennessee. So to try to recoup the money because it was very tactical. There were about 5 people in total working on her. They wouldn't let her out of the store. She had made one set of purchases, and then as she's going, they grabbed her again and started pressuring her for another sale. And it was just a big hot mess, and just this god-awful experience for her. And it's still very much irritating and a problem for her. But we're going to fight it. We're going to fight it and try to get that money back because it's bullshit. It's just absolute bullshit that in this day and age, you go to a shopping mall that you should not get accosted by sales clerks. And you should not be forced into their store, and you should not feel compelled to buy stuff, and coerced into it. This is like military type, persuasion. It was bad. So anyway, more to come on that probably. And after all this time, we thought our rat problems may have just kind of resolved themselves. Boy, were we wrong. Went to work one day, came outside, went into the parking garage to come home, and sure as shit, found another puddle of coolant under the damn car. No warning lights this time, no issues. Got it home. Called up to make an appointment to bring it in. It was going to be about 4 or 5 days before they could get it in. So I didn't drive it. I just kept it parked in our carport, and it leaked out all the fluid. So I get in the day of the appointment. There's a message saying the coolant level is low, but it's still safe to drive. So I go ahead and drive it into the dealership, only to find out that probably ended up being a mistake. So word of caution, if you have an EV out there and you're draining coolant, even though the car might be telling you it's okay to drive, don't drive it. Because as it turned out, yes, it was the same hose that the rat chewed through before, and that got replaced. But this time though, because the reservoir and all of the coolant leaked out, this part called the super manifold, which is somehow, I guess, controlling the flow of the liquids through the battery pack to keep them cool, I guess is the way I understood it. Maybe it means a little different, I don't know. But anyway, that burned out. So that bill was $2,000. Because despite the fact that the car, told me that it was safe to drive and I thought it was okay, and I did. Oh, and just to add insult to injury, when Charlotte and I were taking the car in to go drop it off, as I'm backing out, bam, ran into the back of my pickup truck. So I ended up damaging the back of my car also at the same time. Another freaking Job trial here. All right, so we got my car into the car shop, and then so we were down to the farm truck and my wife's car. And again, Charlotte and I went and ran a bunch of errands on a Saturday. Everything was fine in her car that night. No warning lights, nothing. The next morning, she gets in her car to go somewhere else. sure shit, every single freaking warning light on again, in her car. Just out of the blue, unexpected. We thought the rats were gone. Now we know they're not, because now they just took out my Tesla for the second time. They just took her car out for the second time. Got it towed in. Luckily this time it wasn't nearly as bad. It was just where the damage was done. It wasn't $4,700 damage. It only ended up being $660 worth of damage. But still, now I'm furious though. I'm inflamed. I am so angry at this point. I go, because during this whole thing with the rats, we had Terminex come out and they walked our house and they didn't, we said we had this rodent problem. They said, well, we can do a service that's going to seal, we'll seal off all the entry points, but really honestly, we've only found one entry point. This is it. If you want, you can take care of it yourself and you'll save yourself $3,000-$4,000. So I'm like, well, yeah, of course I'll do it on my own. So I did. But then I asked about, well, could we at least set up some bait traps out in poison traps? And they said, no, that's not a good idea because the smell will just attract them. Well, hindsight being 2020, it was, they're attracted because they're already here. They're already in our infested home. So anyway, I went and bought about $250 worth of rat poison, traps, and I went into the crawl space last weekend, found all the droppings and put the traps, or put the poison where I think that they had the high activity. And so after you set them, you have to go, give it a few days and go check to see if any of the poison had been consumed. So this morning I do that. I go crawl into the crawl space, and I have to crawl from one side of the house all the way to the other side of the house, by the way. So crawling on your hands and knees in the crawl space, not so fun. I check every trap and nothing has been, they haven't consumed anything. But I went to a different part of the crawl space, to the underneath where they installed the hot water heater, and it's also where our electrical panel is, where all the wires in the house come into, and there's a fucking leak again. There's a leak in there and there's a puddle. So I'm presuming it's a leak that they told me about when they installed the hot water heater that they said they repaired. So I'm assuming now that they did repair it, but now the rats were in there again, set up Club Med, chewed into the hose. They're getting free water. They got a nice beach resort down there. So tomorrow morning, got the plumbers coming out to fix that again. I'm going to try to call someone other than Terminex. They've lost my business because they've lost my trust over helping me with this rodent problem. I'm going to end up calling some other one, someone that specializes in rodents, and see about getting out. So that's my next trial that I had to endure here of Job. All right, and the last little tidbit I'm going to tell here is last week after mowing for the first time, one of my tires on my lawnmower went flat. I went ahead and filled it up, checked it, no obvious reason on why. I couldn't see any nails or sharp objects or any damage done to the tire, but I went ahead and filled it back up. So fast forward to today, I decided to go ahead and try to mow today. And as I'm going along, all of a sudden I got stuck. I was on a side hill, the lawnmower kind of slid into one of my fences, and I got stuck. And I looked down, and the frickin' tire came off the rim. So it deflated again, tire came off the rim. Now I got to figure out how to change the tire on my lawnmower when I'm done filming this. So that's all my story. Charlotte and I were just cracking up about, because we were just talking the other week about, how over the last couple of years I've really, living this farm life, you really do learn about patience, and you really just have to kind of go with the flow, because when you deal with livestock, they just, you can't communicate with them. They got their minds of their own. All you can do is kind of go with it, and it's kind of taught me a lot about life, and I've told you guys some of those stories. I've posted on LinkedIn about some of them. But I was just sitting here chuckling, and so everything I just told you has happened over the last 6 months or so. So it's like, that's why I'm saying I feel like this is like if God were a farmer. I'm in the book of Job right now. I think he's testing my resolve here. But I'm not trying to make fun of it, because we're just learning how to farm. Let's be serious here. There's nothing at stake here for me. I have a little bit of perspective here. I mean, just one of the local farmers here that runs a blueberry patch. It's a self-picked blueberry patch. I don't know, about a month ago, we had another hard freeze come in, but it was very late in the season. They had sent out a note saying essentially their blueberry crop was destroyed in this one night, this one freeze. So, their entire, I don't know if it's their entire business, but, they can go there and pick them yourself also. And so they send me out a note saying, they've lost their crop for the year and there won't be any U-picks season. That's a real farm problem. The problems I'm talking about aren't real farm problems, but still, it's just interesting to see how, when it rains, it pours. Farmers are, beholden to the weather. And you can't express that enough. And so when you hear about these droughts through the Midwest and, and all these areas, you got to understand that as that's happening, there's a farmer struggling, and a lot of them. And so, I think maybe that's what I want to get out of this is, don't worry about my struggles. My struggles really don't mean anything in the big scheme of things. I can say, I'm having my own little book of Job here, somewhat tongue-in-cheek, and, and I can laugh about it because it is kind of humorous if you think about it. I mean, everything's been going along pretty good, but I wanted to go ahead and create this video to let y'all know, see, everything's not always perfect. Things really do kind of pile up at times. But really think about, these extreme weather events that go on and understand that every time one of those extreme weather events are going on, there's likely, farmers that are being impacted by that in one shape or form or another. So, next time you're at a farmer market, go ahead and maybe pick up that extra tomato or two to thank them, for what they do, or an extra bundle of flowers, or, an extra dozen of eggs, or another jar of honey or anything, because they, these folks they're not making a lot of money, I promise you. And everything's not easy, and they're dependent upon the natural resources that are around them. And so the fact that they're producing and bringing you goods, locally, really means a lot. So with that, and I just dropped my phone. Why not? Bye.